All right, welcome guys, UAP Society. We have a live show planned, pretty exciting, with Science Bob Mcgwier. So Bob Mcgwier, I've basically been in contact with him offline, basically in the groups, I guess, UFO investigation groups. So I've never actually met with him or talked with him in person, but I have, worked with him basically online. So I'm very happy to meet with him in person. And he said that actually he's ready now to talk about some stories that he has basically presented in those groups and not gone live with. So we'll see. We'll basically see what we can get from him. But basically, Science Bob Mcgwier, he has extensive experience in the Navy. He's done a lot of interesting top secret radio frequency stuff in submarines, on ships. So he has a lot of experience, and he has some crazy stories related to these USOs, that we'll call them, that they are being called, right? Unidentified submerged objects, right? Or would it be phenomena? It's funny, they're USOs, but it's UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, but USOs, right? They're still objects, I guess, until we come up with a new acronym. So Science Bob will basically be hopefully relating those stories to us. But he's not yet here. Okay, so yeah, we'll see. I basically, every time I tried to look at his website was Hawkeye 360, it would shut off my computer. So we'll try it one more time. But Science Bob basically has, his company is Hawkeye 360. And I'll try and share it here, and hopefully this doesn't shut off my computer again. We'll see. Looks like it's working. Okay, so this is Hawkeye 360. And basically what it is radio frequency geospatial intelligence. So this is his company, which is basically, they created this, we'll ask him about it. He's actually here in the background. So we'll ask Bob about this company, Hawkeye 360, which is basically these satellites that provide geospatial intelligence, right? So NRO stuff, national reconnaissance contracts, etc. So he's highly knowledgeable on all of these kind of top secret programs, etc. Very happy to have him on the show. So let's go ahead and bring on Bob Mcgwier.
Hey,
hello,
Chris,
Bob. Thank you for being here.
Glad to be here with you. And I wish we had met before now, but it's good to meet you.
Yeah, exactly. It is. It goes so fast. I don't know. It seems like it's just nonstop right now. There's always something I need to be doing. There's some new documentary I need to be watching. There's some new show. Just so much information coming out. But I'm very happy to meet with you finally, in person, essentially online. So thanks for being here.
And I just want to point out, like yesterday, John Ramirez got on a podcast and said the following: all of my, because he's a CIA officer, retired. He says, all of my colleagues at the CIA that I talk to about the phenomenon are telling me that half of all experiencers have implants in them. I mean, in that one sentence, he did disclosure of the fact that non-human intelligences are interacting with humans, and that the people at the CIA know it, and half of us have implants. I mean, it was just the most amazing revelation. Yesterday was cuckoo on social media for UFOs.
Wow, that's amazing. And well, because weren't we supposed to get some new report, right? What was supposed to be coming out yesterday? I thought they were just doing the classified briefing.
The Senate Select Committee on Intelligence and the House Select Committee on Intelligence were supposed to receive a classified report yesterday and an unclassified report from the Director of National Intelligence, who was directed by the National Defense Authorization Act in 2022 to produce an unclassified report with a classified annex and deliver it yesterday. She has begged off and said she needs a couple of more days.
Couple more days.
Yes, that's Avril Haines. She's the DNI. So there you go.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see what they come up with. But if you're looking at the news, it seems obvious to me that they've done a public affairs campaign, basically, saying that
Susan Goff has been out really negative. And so what's clear to me anyway is there's continues to be a war going on inside about what to tell. But Senator Gillibrand and the other people who are continue, and the what's his name in the House, who
Gallagher.
Gallagher, who really upset everything with all these brilliant questions and entering the Wilson documents into the congressional record. Basically, the Wilson documents and Oak Shannon's document, which led to a lot of it, is a prescription for who to subpoena and interview about all these programs. It's just, it's a guide. It's a guide on how to find out everything you want about crashed vehicles.
And Solace, he asked also about Maelstrom. My video tonight, I made a funny joke scene tonight. I'm excited to play it about that, basically what you're talking about. But he also entered in the Maelstrom case.
Yes.
He asked about Solace, and they said they had no idea.
They went, what's that? We don't have that data in our. How can you not have the data on Maelstrom and Bob? What's his name's flight from Vandenberg, where they shot the warhead out of the air? How can you not have data on that?
Yeah, they do a conference every 5 years, I think. So Solace, that's Robert Jacobs, Dr. Bob Jacobs. I have a video on him. He has an amazing story. That's an awesome story. And Robert Hastings. Yeah, as well. A lot of Bobs.
Yes, too many Bobs and Roberts.
Yeah, it's excellent. But so thank you for being here, Bob. Can you just give a short summary of your background, basically what you got you into UAPs?
Sure. So it's a little bit lengthy, but let's go through it because I think it's interesting. So, and I have not been regressed, though that's coming up. But that's coming up Friday. It's my first regression. So anyway, but I'm going to tell you what I know.
What's a regression? I'm sorry.
What's
a regression? I don't
Hypnotic regression.
Oh, okay, cool.
I'll get a hypnotic regression on Friday.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay. So maybe I'll find out some things. So anyway, so in the when I was just under 1 year old, I got cerebral. I got encephalitis, and I coded 3 times. So I had 3 near-death experiences before I was 1 year old. And the doctor said, okay, we're going to try one more thing. They tried one more thing, and I stabilized and my temperature fell. But my temperature had been very high, and they told my mother that I was going to, back then language was a little rough. They told her I would be a vegetable and or an imbecile, but I would never be right. And of course, I've had
even a wrong clock's right twice a day,
Exactly. So I have had my IQ measured, and I'm fine. Okay. So by the time when I was 3 years old, we moved from Tennessee. I was born in Lebanon, Tennessee. We moved from Tennessee to a small town in southwest Alabama. And one morning when I got up, I was 3 years old. I walked into where my mother and her best friend were having coffee and et cetera. And I began to demonstrate to them that miraculously overnight, I had learned how to read. Okay. And I was pulling things off the shelf and reading them to them. And they were like,
at age 3?
Age 3. No explanation whatsoever. My mother and her friend have both told me this story over and over again to the point I can't forget it. Okay. So later on, when I was 10 years old, I had what I call my miracle year. I memorized Gray's Anatomy for cover to cover, and I could tell you everything in the human body, spell it, tell you what it did, all this other stuff. And I was 10. So I became an amateur radio operator. I built model rockets that actually flew, and so forth and so on. So it was clear I was going to be a technology type person. And at the time, everybody in my family wanted me to be a medical doctor. So I went to school after high school to become a medical doctor. And my girlfriend at the time was from my hometown. So we were freshmen at the University of Alabama, and I picked her up to bring her home. And on the way home, we had over an hour of missing time. We wound up in the middle of nowhere. I had no idea how we got there. I just drove around until I figured out where we were, and we went home, and we got home an hour and a half late. So we just said we got lost, and there we go. I don't know what happened. Okay. But I know this. 2 weeks later, I stopped wanting to be a medical doctor. I left the University of Alabama. I went to Auburn University, where I got the first dual degree in applied mathematics and electrical engineering ever issued by Auburn University. And I've been mathematician and engineer. I've really been a polymath ever since. So, and that's kind of the only last weird thing I remember from when I was young. So when I was, then I went to work for the intelligence community. I got my first clearance, which was a Q clearance, when I went to work at Sandia National Laboratories in 1976. And in 1978, I decided that if I wanted respect, I had to have a PhD. So I went back and prepped to be a PhD, and I was admitted to a bunch of universities, and I attended Brown University, where I got a PhD in applied mathematics. And then I left there, tried to work at my old alma mater, and decided that I was going to go broke because I had 2 kids. So I went to work for the Institute for Defense Analyses, Center for Communications Research in Princeton, New Jersey. And so I worked there and was detailed to the CIA and the National Security Agency multiple times. For example, in 1998, I spent less than half the year at home. And I did lots and lots of travel, including it was unusual for a person like me to actually do operations, but I did operations in the field, and we will go over some of those that are interesting. So
you would go out basically and do studies basically for Princeton, I guess, or
actually,
or
no.
We can just come back and talk to
I would actually conduct operations with people from the National Security Agency and the Central Intelligence Agency in the field.
Cool.
Okay, so this is how,
we can come back to that.
We'll come back because there are at least 2 cases that are very interesting that we want to go over. All right, so so I retired from there. I went to Oak Ridge National Labs in 2010, and I worked on a problem which was of very big interest at the time, which is, can we locate the centrifuges being used by Iran? So I was able to help with that. That's all I can say. And I left there and we joined the Hume Center for National Security and Technology at Virginia Tech. I became a full professor by waving a magic wand. And I became the director of research. And I was the director of research for the Hume Center for a year and a half. But we grew so fast because I got one of the largest contracts ever awarded to Virginia Tech. And for a year and a half, I was the highest rewarded research professor at Virginia Tech, but with a very large contract from the National Reconnaissance Office, introducing software and cognitive radio as a concept to maybe be included on some of their spy satellites. So, and at the time, it was clear that we had grown too large for Dr. Charles Clancy, who was the executive director of the Hume Center, and me, who was the director of research, to continue going on like we were. So I hired 3 people and divided the Hume Center into 3 laboratories, and each of those persons went in 3 laboratories, and I was elevated to chief scientist. So my job from then until I left was, what are new things we should be working on? So I introduced quantum computing at Virginia Tech and some other things. Like that. So that's just an example. So and while I was there, I first found in 2012, I first founded Federated Wireless, which is a wireless communications company that's the first shared spectrum company to implement wireless 4G and 5G technology, private 4G and 5G LTE networks, 4G LTE and 5G networks. And then in 2015, I founded with Charles Clancy Hawkeye 360, which is flies clusters of 3 spacecraft, and it's building a constellation. And this constellation's purpose is with these little clusters of 3 spacecraft, use brand new techniques that we invented to geolocate emitters on the ground. And it's been very successful. It found the Chinese on the border of India before the rest of the intelligence community did by tracking its signals. It found that the harbor of Shanghai had gone quiet and had shut down before the world knew that COVID existed. So it became very, very apparent very quickly that, but nothing moves quick in the intelligence community, because what we were doing was going to take $100 million worth of spacecraft and replace single billion-dollar spacecraft with this. And so we were heavy disruptive technological competition for great big producers of multi-billions of dollars worth of spacecraft, but we don't cost that much. So we got a contract from the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, an IDIQ, which is indefinite quantity, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract, but it was a $500 million contract. So they could write contracts on demand and we would have to produce them. And it became clear quickly that we had something to offer in terms of geospatial intelligence from spacecraft on orbit. And then a little over a year later, the National Reconnaissance Office gave Hawkeye 360 a contract to continue to build its spacecraft and put them up in clusters and build an entire constellation, and at the same time integrate that constellation into the National Reconnaissance fleet of spacecraft. So that's kind of where we are today. And so that is a quick rundown, about as quick as I can make it, of my history.
Yeah, thank you, man. That was amazing. This video is really good too.
Yes, I mean, it's done some amazing things. Like it found out the Chinese are shipping all in the waters around the Galapagos Islands in violation of international treaty. It's done a lot of things, and Hawkeye is going to be very, very successful.
Excellent. And I had one thought is, can we make 3 of these satellites? It's in a triangle there. Could you do a LIGO, like a LIGO, laser interferometer up in space?
The answer is yes, but look, we designed the thing to do, and we built the spacecraft, and every next 3 spacecraft have new technology in them.
Yeah. So
that's coming along with quantum squeezed clocks, so that we get extremely accurate sample rates with extreme precision. A bunch of other stuff is coming because the technology. We are a bleeding edge technology company, taking that and doing geospatial intelligence with it. And the reason we're able to do that is the government doesn't tell us how to build spacecraft, because we built it using private capital. We are a venture capital based company, and the government can't tell us how to build things. And so we say, hey, look, we built this, and we think it's good for this. And they go, oh, yeah, you're right. It is good for that. And then gives Hawkeye a contract. It's much more efficient. We get to try brand new technology on orbit, where they're using 10-year-old technology on orbit, which is proven. It's just complete. That's the reason we're disruptive. We're very disruptive because we're using bleeding edge technology, not 10-year-old technology.
Where do you get your ideas from? Do you think any of it comes from this, phenomenon?
For you know this already, and thank you for the question. Since I was young, I've received downloads. And I don't know where they come from. So let me explain to you. I'll get a download, and it's strange because I will know the answer. I will know approximately how to do the answer, but I won't personally be capable of implementing the answer. I just know the answer's right, and I know to do it. So I'll write down a description of what I want done, and I will go and find a team of people to help me. And so without this team of people, I accomplish nothing, because I don't know how to do it. I just know it's the right thing to do. And I've done this over and over my entire life. And so I used to do it and just give it all away to friends or whatever. And then because you have imposter syndrome. You go, how can I know this when I don't even understand how to implement it? Okay, but I finally went and said, hey, universe, don't give me any more of these downloads unless I can go and make money with it. And so I had the ideas for Federated Wireless, which are amazingly simple, but no one ever thought of them.
Yes.
And I found a team of people, including one of my students who I advised at Virginia Tech, and he and I implemented in a prototype the technology needed to make federated wireless work, and that company is now exploding. Okay, so I was working on a contract for the U.S. government, and what Hawkeye does was not part of the contract. But while I was doing this other contract, I had a download. And I suddenly saw how to do these trio of spacecraft and provide exceedingly accurate geospatial intelligence, geolocations of RF emitters from the ground. And I hired a bunch of people and worked with my friends, and we started Hawkeye 360, and it's going to be $1 billion company in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like the triangle, the trio of satellites is just an amazingly powerful system, you know? I mean, that you can
and other people had approximated it, but look, it's not like my stuff is secret. Anybody can go and read my patents.
Yeah.
And see what I did.
And we're doing that for Sky 360. The idea is at least 2, detectors, but should we require 3? Is 3 that much better than 2?
Let me tell you. So I'm meeting with Richard Hoff, and I'm going to help do the following and help pay for the following. Okay, so Jimmy Blanchett has figured out how to emit RF signals and then have non-human intelligence to show up in front of it in the middle of his half-power beam width for the antennas where he's projecting a signal. So I believe that we can do multiple different things that will allow us, once these vehicles show up, to track them. So you need, are you ready? 3 antennas in an array where you are taking a big, huge emitter that you don't own but always transmits. And the signals bounce off whatever it is, and the bouncing signal arrives at your 3 antennas. And from the time difference of arrival at the 3 different antennas and a few other things, you can get angle of arrival, direction of signal, altitude of signal. So you can do as-L, and not only that, you can track it across the sky. But I think the better thing, once that's up and running and you're doing it, you take that suddenly you attract the craft with your emitter. You find it with the passive radar from your 3 antenna phased array, and then you could take a legal frequency laser and bounce signals off of it, pulsed signals, and you can track it to millimeters.
With the
so
laser.
this is clear. Yeah. I got every bit of this, Chris, in a download, and here I am just giving it away.
It's interesting though, if you look, none of the military videos, right? The gimbal, the Go Fast, and the FLIR, none of them have laser ranging.
It's ridiculous. Well, no.
Yeah,
that's what's released.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well,
so released, we haven't seen anything with laser ranging.
What I contend is, and we haven't done it yet, but my contention is that if we make a plan, implement a multi-year plan, that we can go through and implement this attractor for the craft, detector and the craft, and then follow the craft with pulsed lasers that are operating on a legal frequency, so you can aim it anywhere in the sky. You won't get arrested for blinding a pilot with a green laser. Okay, and then I call this but somebody goofy like me coming up with an idea. And technology is changing so fast that if we stay on the bleeding edge of technology, we're going to be able to do things that no one else can do, and will be a disruption. In other words, no longer will we need the military to find and attract vehicles. That's number one. And number two, here's my next idea. I believe that it's possible that when Jimmy Blanchett sends out one of these signals and suddenly a craft shows up and begins doing stuff, what is it doing? My opinion is it might be saying hello. Well, if it's saying hello, how do we say hello back? So maybe we want to add artificial intelligence to, and we start emitting binary show them how we do arithmetic. And then we figure out a way to interact by correlating what they do when we send a signal, because they've got to be smarter than us or they wouldn't be here. So if I'm counting one and I look at what they do, and I count two and I look at what they do, I count out three and I look at what they do, pretty soon I have the ability to translate their light version of 1, 2, 3, 4. And you see, you've begun a conversation. I believe we can do this, Chris. And you know what? That's what I want to do for Skyhub long term.
Excellent. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, because we're partnered UAP Society, so you're in the right place, partnering with Sky 360, and yeah.
And Richard,
for any of these.
And the history of Sky 360 is I started with two other people, UAPTN. One of those people did not like the structure of UAPTN because it was a not-for-profit corporation, and I was the CEO. And I will put it kindly, the other person was a control freak. So they pulled everything out, and because I wanted to see it done, I transferred all of the assets to Skyhub. And one person did all of the work, mostly all by himself, while commanding others to do bits and pieces. And I kept buying the technology and helping and do so for whatever I could.
Yeah.
And it was about a year and a half in, and whatever went on, I don't know all the details because I had stopped paying attention. All I knew is he stopped working and left Skyhub in a mess. And Richard Hoff and the people in Europe picked up all of the stuff that had been done in UAPTN, which I founded, and helped Skyhub keep going, and moved the open source software that had been done into Sky 360. So if you want to call me the grandfather of Sky 360, you can. I won't say no, but they've done all the work. In other words, I'm only now coming up to speed because I really support these people and think they're on the right track. And I know for a fact already that the National Reconnaissance Office is using the data on the UAPs that they're finding in Europe.
They're using it. Yeah.
Yeah, they've asked for and are using it. It's open source and available in the cloud.
Yeah, so all excellent stuff, Bob. Let's move on to the USO stories. And while we have some time, I want to keep it, let's see, below an hour.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I recently began to work with, and it's just very, very preliminary, but just beginning. I'm working with the USO group, which is reconstituting itself right now for SCU. So this will be my first major project inside SEO. So I will become using this project. I will go from being an affiliate member to a full member of SEU by accomplishing a project under their purview. And that's my reason for doing it, is to become a full member. All right. So cool. And my interest began in 1998 or 9. I'm going to forget which, but I'll tell you the story. Okay. I was a rider, what's called a rider. That means I was on a submarine, but I was not a member of the crew. I was an intelligence officer, and I was doing intelligence operations on board the USS Hampton. Now, I'm not going to tell you what those operations were because it's classified. I'm just going to state that I was on board. And there was a time when we needed to, let's just say, leave the area quickly where we were. So we left the area quickly. We went out in the middle of nowhere, and we were running deep and fast. And deep and fast are both classified numbers, so I won't be saying that.
Yeah, and what is it like on a submarine? I've never been on it, man. It just seems like just an amazing piece of technology. You know,
yeah. So if
I've never seen one actually.
The one picture that people can see of me on the sail of the USS Hampton can be found on qrz.com, And if you do a search for N4HY, you will find a picture of me on there. Search for N4HY, and you will find a picture of me on the sail of the USS Hampton that's me on the sail of the USS Hampton, leaving wherever I was. We were just headed out to do our operation, and you can tell from the bow wake that we are full speed ahead.
Oh, how
And
fast
that's my Institute for Defense Analysis ball cap on my head. And the captain took this picture while we were underway. So shortly after this, we went under, and we stayed under for a while until we had to leave where we were quickly. So while we left, we were underway, and it was between my shifts. And all of a sudden, I heard something really strange. And there's depth gauges on the walls, a lot of places inside a submarine. So I knew how deep we were. And I could tell, because being a person with a full-blown security clearance, I got to go aft into the engineering compartments. I got to go inside and see where the reactor was operating. And that's number one. And number two, which I won't talk about, but in addition to that, they explained to me yes, that's the Hampton. They explained to me how the screws are kept quiet, so the submarine is hard to track. And it was amazing technology. Okay, so we were underway, and all of a sudden I hear this sound. It's really strange, because it's clear that what is going on is something is whizzing by us, and it's moving so fast. I just can't believe it, because this submarine is limited in the speed it can go by the incompressibility of the water in front of it. And this thing blew by us like we were standing still. Now, I'm not going to throw anybody else under the bus here, but I guarantee you the following happened. A person with knowledge of onboard systems came out and said, "Oh my God, this goddamn thing is going faster than the speed of sound underwater, but that's faster than the speed of sound in air. Nothing can move faster than the speed of sound in air underwater, because water's incompressible." There was no cavitation. It was just weird. And so there you go. That's my story about the USOs.
That's amazing. Yeah. So I have so many questions there. Obviously, a lot of classified stuff. My first question is, can you tell a submarine is going deeper or shallower when you're in it? If you're
yeah. Because you can tell. You feel this when it changes the bow angle, and you can hear the screws change speeds. And if you're in the right place, you see a depth gauge. There's a depth gauge. There are depth gauges all over the boat. You can read how deep you are from the wall and in the compartment you're in. Yep.
And when you say you saw it go by,
no, I heard it. Heard it go by.
So were you next? I mean, the sonar guy. I mean, how accurate is this hearing? Could it have been anything else? Could it have been like?
Let's say it this way: the sonar is extremely accurate.
Excellent. And so, could it have been anything else? I guess moving faster than
not moving at that speed.
Or some issue with the detector, the sensors. Basically, what would Mick West say?
I do not know the answer. I don't, but I don't believe it, because the people who are saying this were submariner sensor experts.
And I guess after that? Did they mention anything about it? What did the other people say about it?
We should report this. Nope. Didn't want to hear about it. Didn't want to report it. Didn't want to tell anybody. Didn't want to cause any problems. Didn't want to disrupt our mission. So when I left there with the knowledge in my head, not having been told to be quiet, not having been told it was classified. So I will not discuss the classified portions of this mission. But when I left there, my knowledge of what happened was unclassified, and it's mine to tell wherever I want to. They blew it. They blew it. So now I can talk about it because it's completely unclassified.
That's awesome. And I guess how long did it go on? Like, how long was the engagement?
Oh, it couldn't have been more than a few seconds, because it blew by us and was gone.
And was there any other indications, or
and it
just
didn't return?
yeah, only sensor indications? There was no
Only
indications.
sensor. No,
inside
because
the ship?
we were too deep for anything else.
Yeah, the pressures. Well, yeah, that's amazing. Amazing story.
Yeah, look,
anything else to add on this?
These submarines can go faster and deeper than most people realize. I will not tell you what that is because that's classified.
But so you're saying that while extremely deep behind enemy lines, or at least in a place you are not privy to mention, you saw, using the sensors, something going the speed of sound underwater.
Yeah, speed of sound in air underwater.
The speed of sound
without
in air.
Cavitation and without being crushed.
Yeah,
because water is incompressible, especially at those pressures.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's as hard as steel.
Yeah, it's an amazing story. Have you shared this before? Is this the first time you shared it online?
I shared it on Vinny Adams to a lesser degree than this.
Excellent.
He did not get all the details you're getting, not even close.
Yeah.
This is the first time I'm just blowing it wide open. And I'm sorry. And I'm sorry. In a private conversation, which was off the record, I told Ross Coulthart this story and some others.
Cool.
And I'll just tell you the outcome of that conversation. Two things happened, one pleasant and one unpleasant. The pleasant thing that happened was Ross says, "Oh my goodness, Bob, whenever you get ready to write your biography, I want to be the one to write it." Okay, that was the first thing. And the second thing, my now ex-wife overheard the conversation, and it was a major contributory factor toward me having an ex-wife.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. She did not care for these stories.
Well, excellent. Let's hear the second one then.
Okay. So in 2008, I went on the USS Blue Ridge. I was doing we were doing port calls all along the Eastern Asian coastline on the Blue Ridge. And that's common on the Blue Ridge because it is the flagship of the 7th Fleet, which is based in Yokosuka, Japan. And it's a helicopter gunship, a helicopter carrier. And many people will remember a very iconic video that happened at the end of the Vietnam War, where a helicopter landed on its deck and was shoved off the tail of the deck after it unloaded its passengers, which it had brought from the American embassy in Saigon. So, the helicopter was shoved off the tail of the USS Blue Ridge. Okay, so I'm on the Blue Ridge doing port calls. And again, what I'm doing on the Blue Ridge, I will not say because my work was classified. But rest assured, I was there. And while we were going up and down going from Thailand all the way up to Vladivostok, doing port calls all over in 2008 for a little over 3 months, we went through a typhoon. And the typhoon had 90 knot winds and 40, 50 foot seas. I mean, it was rough.
Crazy.
And people were puking all around me, but I was too excited. I didn't get seasick. I was excited. I wanted to look outside and see what I could see. And I was on the bridge. So I was right up there underneath the American flag, looking out the windows. And so that's when I noticed that even though we were in a typhoon and it was raining like mad, there was no rain hitting the ship. No rain hitting the ship. And I'm going, what the heck? And I looked out the window and looked up, and I could see a glow above us in the sky. It was not very bright, but I could see it. And whatever it was blocking off the rain from the entire ship, stem to stern. Okay, and
you remember where you were on the ship? Can you see the screen?
See those windows? See those windows right up top, right beneath the flag?
Yeah,
I was in there, looking out the windows.
Cool.
Okay, so I believe I was on the port side, And the reason I
This is the
say
port
that is
side, yeah.
because I took a peek outside, and I could do that because I was leeward. In other words, the winds were from behind me, and the bulkhead of the ship were blocking the winds. So I could look, and I could look up easily. So anyway, it suddenly grew brighter and took off straight up, and the rain returned.
And the rain returned.
And the
Okay,
rain
so
returned after it was gone.
that's just an amazing story. So you're basically on this ship, which is you're up in the top there in the bulkhead, I guess.
Yep.
Excellent. Is that the cockpit?
Yeah, that's the bridge.
Okay, cool. That's the bridge. Excellent. Yeah. And so what got you to go outside? You just wanted to go outside, or?
Well, yeah, no, and so the bridge is actually a couple of decks below, and this stuff up here has this stuff up top, so you can easily go back and forth. So the bridge is below that, and this stuff up here has electronics and stuff in it for interacting with all these antennas and other things you see around. And so the bridge is actually slightly below that. And I was looking in, see those, I'm sorry, I've got the story. So those 3 windows in the front.
In the front?
Down.
Yeah.
Those 3 windows. That's where the bridge crew looks out. And and so and to the right of that, you see this little emblem on a door. Keep going to the right. Keep going to the right. Right there. That emblem. That is the door where you go in from outside. Go beneath that's where you go in from outside into the bridge. So these people that are above that emblem on that little, they can go in and out of the bridge from a door that's right there.
Oh, I see. Okay, cool.
Okay, yeah. So whatever I was doing, which I'm not allowed to tell, took place inside this cupola where those windows are.
Okay, cool. In these windows here, yeah.
Yes, the windows up top is where I normally did my work.
Okay, I see.
And the bridge is down below, which is where I was looking out.
Okay,
so
cool.
I attempted to run up and go, because you can go inside the superstructure up to where I was. I attempted to run up there and see if I could see anything, but by the time I got up there, it was gone.
Okay, so you basically saw it from here. You're basically looking out one of these windows?
Yes. Looking up, and then I ran up and looked out, and by then it was gone, and the rain had returned.
Cool. So basically you saw, so in this massive typhoon, so you look outside, and you basically notice no rain on the ship.
Yes, and so I'm looking across the bow, and well above the bow, I can see a little glow. I couldn't tell what it was, but I could see this glow. And that's just the bow. So above the bow, up in the sky, I could see a glow, and there was no rain falling on us.
Okay. So you're basically seeing out here some glow with no rain?
No rain.
What did you see? Did you see a ship or an object or anything?
All I could see was the glow. I couldn't, because it was the dark of night, and we were going through a typhoon.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, all I could see was the glow, and the glow increased. And when the glow increased, it took off. And I think the bridge crew was so concentrated on the horizon, because that's the only way in a seas that horrible that you can be out and amongst it and not throw up. You have to stand there and look at the horizon, or your ears go crazy and you get seasick. Okay, and so they were doing that, but that was also their job, is to make sure we didn't hit anything while we were underway. All right, so, and then I saw the thing glow and increasing glow and take off. That's all I saw. I saw no ship or superstructure. I only saw this glow that blocked off all the rain.
And so what was the color of it? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was yellowish, and it got brighter and whiter right before it took off. And it seemed to cover the entire bottom.
So it's like it just, yeah, that's interesting. So I'm trying to visualize it. You know, you're basically looking out the window, and you can kind of see through the rain because there's no rain, right? And you see this colored orb.
Yeah, and so I mean,
or is it an orb? Is there any shape to it at all?
No. It looked like the lights were on a flat surface.
I see.
Oh, but again, I couldn't see the surface because we're in the dark, and what I see is the light. I couldn't see the surface or whatever was behind these lights.
I see. Did you get
any
impression
glowed brighter
of size?
When they glowed brighter, it took off.
I see. And then the rain came.
And then the rain came back. To me, that was clear. As clear as the logical inference of all of that says it was a gigantic craft that took off. And we were underway, and it maintained its position right above us for quite a while.
Yeah, how long, I guess, did it go on?
It was minutes.
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 So you were looking and looking. Did you mention it to other people? Like,
No,
hey,
I may have said something, but look, in the excitement, you're in the middle of a typhoon. The ship is going up and down. I'm hanging on for dear life. Okay, and I just, I may or may not have said anything, but I don't remember. I just know what I saw. That I'll never forget.
It's amazing.
So I later told the intelligence staff what I saw, and they didn't want to do anything about it. And so again, this is, we didn't gather any evidence. Nothing happened to the ship, so there's nothing to report. So we're not going to report it. Because if you report an incident at sea, of a near miss or whatever, they send an investigative team, and they didn't want that to happen.
You never do, because they always find something you don't want anyway.
Exactly. They don't want you. You don't want them snooping around and finding crap you don't want them to find, and then give you a bunch. And let me tell you, the Navy has zero defects. The command officers, they are in charge of and own all responsibility on the ship. So if an incident happens, they own it. If the Navy gigs them, they're gone, because the Navy has zero defects.
Zero defects.
They're fired instantly if something is found wrong.
I believe it. Also, there's just so many laws. Well, the Navy is different. I remember I did Navy pilot training, just undergraduate pilot training. And I remember the Navy basically says what you can't do.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
and
correct.
The Air Force says, so you can basically do kind of everything else within reason. But the Air Force says actually the opposite is what you can do. So you're very limited. So
yes, and the Navy, of course, you got to remember, the Navy has a serious responsibility. Their job is to project force anywhere in the world. So they are constrained as to what they can do so as to not start World War III.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it's constantly guarded nonstop by an entire fleet of ships around a flagship or a carrier. And the USS George Washington is the carrier of the 7th Fleet, and this is the flagship. And so the chief, the highest ranking officer in any fleet is never on a carrier. He's off on a flagship, and both of them are protected by submarines and surface vessels whose only job is to keep the bad guys away from them.
What is your take on the NDA for 2023? I noticed the Navy was not on the list of required members.
But that has been added into the Intelligence Community Budget Act. They are not left off. So if both of those are signed into law, I call them. My name for them is, here is the Roswell reveal vehicles that are finally going to be law as soon as Joe Biden signs it.
That would be amazing, huh?
Because they're going to be, all those people who are in these unacknowledged SAPs are going to have their NDA squashed, and they can come out and talk. And at the end of it, it's clear that every year there's going to be an unclassified report generated by whoever is the director of national intelligence. So it says that report is completely unclassified. I assure you, there will be members of the committees and who will run out and tell everybody. So there will be classified stuff they won't be able to tell anybody. But the overall unclassified summary of it, they can tell anybody. You think that won't happen? Of course it'll happen. Look at all the stuff that Gallagher's telling.
Yeah, he's so awesome, man. Gallagher.
Yeah, he will take the unclassified report and he will spread it everywhere. Yeah, and the people who want all this stuff kept secret, they're running scared. And let me tell you, the other fun thing that John Ramirez said earlier is he called it a core secret.
Core secret.
Core secret. He called it a core secret that NHI are interacting with humans and implanting them in half the cases where there are interactions.
It's amazing, man. It's unbelievable.
People should go look at it. They can find it easily. It's a YouTube video.
Cool. Well, I want to talk to John Ramirez anyway. We'll invite him on shortly after. And Bob, we're going to have you on again. Certainly.
I can't wait, Chris. I know I've been following you. I admire your work. You're the first person who was technically competent and technically capable and determined to let me put it my way, blow Mick West out of the water.
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, you didn't need to do anything more than that to get me following you.
Excellent.
Is you disassembled his arguments from the beginning.
And they're still making the same argument. You saw it was in the New York Times. They're saying they're going to argue that the gimbal object, and I do agree. I think it is rotating, but the big question is then what is flying there, that our pilots can't identify. I don't care if it's okay. Great, you're right. It's rotating, but what is it then?
But
they're not going to say it.
My personal analysis, and I don't have all the tools like you have, but my personal analysis is yes, the pod is rotating. It does not account for all of the motion that's visible on the craft, which makes what Mick West contends the rotating pod accounts for all the motion. I don't believe it does. A further analysis should show that it has motion independent of the rotation of the pod. And I think you're the perfect person to work on that.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you, Bob. And thanks everybody for coming. Audience members, in the future, you can leave comments. We'll answer back and we'll get Science Bob back on the show. Thanks again. Have a great day.
I want to thank Chris for inviting me and apologize for being 2 minutes late. I accidentally went to sleep and he woke me up. I'm glad we got together.
It's awesome. I'm glad my computer worked. It reset 8 minutes prior, and then you weren't there yet. I was like, the show's not going to work. But man, it was an amazing show, Bob. Thank you so much.
Please have me back on. I'm a big fan of yours. Big fan.
Thanks, everybody. Definitely. We'll see you. Ciao, guys.